Hi. Hello.
Hey, Rich.
How you feeling?
Slightly nervous and quite happy to have time to talk about the retreat today with you, the practice.
How do you know you're nervous?
Can't be sure.
What evidence do you have?
No, it's there's this vibratory energy that partially is excitement. And then when I say I'm nervous, just something starts to sink deeper. So it feels like felt truth. So,
Hmm. Is it does the red recording light make any impact on this?
yeah, I wouldn't be nervous otherwise, I imagine. Um, I think it's a sense of wanting to do good, like wanting to, I guess at the core actually is wanting to feel myself and bring, like transmit the vision of the work. Um, yeah. How are you feeling?
Pretty calm. Excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Yeah, a little self-conscious about being recorded and wanting to do good and um, create a recorded artifact that's useful for people and that is fascinating and makes them want to come to our event next April. And mostly just kind of that anticipation you have before a big meal. Like, oh, yes, my favorite ingredients are on the table. You're one of my favorite ingredients.
Likewise.
Uh, um, yeah, I think the context I wanted to set for the conversation was just we're organizing a retreat together next year, and can we give people some insight into why we're excited about it and give them the sense of if this is going to be a good place for them to come and what might they enjoy about it and what might be weird and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it would be most useful to not prepare anything, but just to be spontaneous and show what it's like to be a person alive in the minute and not running from a script.
Yeah, there's excitement around having a whole conversation to like context set the retreat, give people an impression instead of just, like the landing page. Oh, here's a Facebook description. So this feels really good and wanting people to get a real sense of what we're doing.
Hmm. I thought maybe it's nice to talk about us first, like who maybe we could talk about our relationship because like I'm currently planning a whole agenda for all the events that are going to happen next year at Casa Tilo. And like the strongest source of excitement for me is like who I get to work with. And you're one of the people that's on my very short list of like absolutely must be collaborating together and cooking. I feel like we're wizards of complementary shape. And you've assembled more wizards to join our wizardry. And I'm like, it's going to be so nice. But maybe we can talk a little bit about, um, I don't know, just the context of our relationship. Like, um, where are we at?
Yeah, I love that. I love talking about our relationship. Yeah, part of that is just it's it's really fun to co-create this with friends and um, I think the practice is kind of visible in our relationship quite clearly as well.
Hmm.
I wonder if you have a sense of how you would tell it.
I think it has to start at the borderland. Like I showed up to this festival that we're not supposed to call a festival. Um, Knowing just a couple of people and in a camp with like a few people I know and then a lot of people I don't know. And um, I think meeting you was the best part of that event. And it seems like since that first meeting, we kind of accelerated down the path of friendship pretty quickly. And yeah, now I feel like you're one of my best friends and one of the people I'm so excited to learn from and learn with, I think. Um, and I think we did the thing kind of like small talk where you start talking about like, what do you know? Um, oh, we both have an interest in community organizing and organization design and conflict and what goes wrong between people and how does an organization build an immune system that is biased towards healthy relationships. That was some like fun. Okay, you're brainy, I'm brainy. These are nice thoughts that we have. And then maybe it was the following day or something. We got to have a conversation on another level where it was you and me and Natty actually. We were on the like this grassy hill, sunny day, this kind of like peak summer bliss. And while everyone was kind of in their happy festival trance, we started talking about terror. And I think and not terror in the abstract, but terror in the specific of like the terror that lives inside of my psychology, that lurks at the edge of my um the script that tells me what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. Um has these like boundaries that are set up by shame and terror and desire and like there's these kind of constraining factors that say this is my personality or this is my field of permission. We were talking about my terror, and I was so struck that you had the precision, first of all, to identify terror when we were like having a pretty calm conversation on a sunny day. Like I wasn't looking like I was freaking out, but that was an ingredient in my inner landscape. And that you were neutral with it, neutral slash attracted, like not repelled. I think that was the thing, like almost like hygienic precision of okay, this is here, and not recoiling, not intimidated, and curious.
I've told this story several people just because it's really stood out as it was quite a special moment for me, and it's interesting hearing your version. Yeah.
What did I leave out?
Um, it's less the it's less a leaving out. I think part of this running up to this is the synchronicity that's possible at Borderland. Like we spoke about during the week, and I think we were both referred to each other as experts within the decentralized community building. And I think I looked for advice sometimes with you because I was head of conflict resolution. And so we've talked before. I was actually a bit shy and didn't think I was special enough to like hang out with or something because you looked so popular. which is definitely a thing of mine. And it stood out for me that we were just kind of small talking or something. And yeah, I wouldn't have phrased it as we were talking about terror. And my perception was more that suddenly, without looking for depth, there was just this incredible depth that appeared, like that somehow almost felt like a soul meeting of some kind in my world of like. And what actually happened for me was that I got deeper in touch with my own terror than I've ever done before in any trauma therapy or anything. Like I've talked about it, but I've never been able to feel it this much from the inside. And I think I just recognized it like a subtext or in between the lines of what you shared, your being somehow. And, um, yeah, it's been a very touching moment of non-seeking. Oh, that depth just kind of appeared. And I wasn't even trying to go into it. It was just there. And it looked like both of us were just like, once we realized we were both in touch with it, like regulating or like being with it just because it was fairly intense. So it stood out for me that there was this, oh, we just kind of dropped into the depth. And then we didn't try to go for more depth, but like really allowing it to just be. I didn't have a choice in that moment. It just felt so enormous. It stands out as quite beautiful. And um, it's like looking at each other and recognizing each other on a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I had this beaming ball of love for months afterwards in my stomach. That was incredible. It's come back sometimes, but it's been so intense that it was even like a little bit dreadful at times. So like just yeah, I think what happened in that moment, oh, this is actually good to mention, is that I touched the depth of my terror that I felt in some of the most violent moments of my life. And we touched it. And at the same time as we touched it, I looked at you, and you were there. And I was surrounded in this beautiful community setting of, land I co-own with thousands of people. And I kind of the community I grew up in. And like thousands of people know me there. And Nati was there. And it was just like, as soon as we touched it, like there's this very strong presence of love that immediately touched it. Like I didn't have to do something with my own terror, or like love it or anything. It's just like it received insane amounts of love. Also, that's I think the difference to the therapeutic context. I think this is good to mention in the context of circling. Of it's just very different if you go to something when you're sitting with a therapist who you're paying, and I'm a therapist myself. It's a beautiful modality, but something else happens in this context of community, and you kind of just stumble into something with someone who actually genuinely wants to be there with you and who's as in as you are with the process. And the love that's available there is just incredible.
Felt a bit like maybe we all agreed to go for like a gentle hike during the day, and then suddenly we were faced with this like extremely dangerous crevasse, and we kind of looked at each other and like, oh yeah, yeah, we can do this. The kind of we were in for more than we signed up for, but then we both recognized, actually the three of us, Natty as well, are kind of well enough equipped to confront the full texture of reality and not have to just carve off the safe territory to explore.
Yeah. I didn't feel like I had any choice. Like it was so immediate, but I also think there was so much openness and trust that I wasn't aware of that we kind of stumbled into this. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there's a self-regulation and reality happening, I think also. I remember that we met some months later in Berlin. You introduced me to some friends, and then we met again and spent 5 days together in Barcelona. And I remember those 5 days as like you, me, and Nati as very impactful. Like it felt like all three of us were tuned in a way where the picture I kept having is like both of you started like if the engine of my conscious is there, you just started not tweaking, not looking at the content of it, but like tweaking something in like the origin where my consciousness comes from, and vice versa, and like all three of us kind of doing that. Even just yeah, I remember just Nati having to look at me, and I was like receiving massive messages. So there was again this sense of complementary of like, wow, yeah, like we just all three had very distinct moves or something, or superpowers that just kind of clicked something for each other. And the experience of that for me was feeling very shameless.
Mm.
Like I used to have this, I still have shame, or I'm still discovering the ways in which I shame myself. I want, and I think I showed a lot of myself, and then the more I showed, the more like I went into territory where afterwards I would start shaming myself a bit, or wanting to like at least like get a break or like withdraw a bit. And both of you were just kept being like, no, bring more. This is awesome. Like even the edgy bit is actually particularly good. And it was a real state experience over several days of, wow, I can just, yeah, bring more and more and more. And it's very powerful for me.
Mm. I think at its best, right? Um, that's what an intimate relationship is for. It's like I can't accept all the parts of myself on my own, and I need someone outside of myself to really see up close in detail, like, hey man, I know you, and it's okay. Like, I accept this.
Yeah.
We can work with this. You're not rejected. Even that really fucked up part of you is part of the family. And me and Natty have been learning how to do that in our marriage for a long time. And, routinely kind of hitting these plateaus where it's like, oh, we got somewhere good, but it's obvious that there's always a limit to how far you can get. And then something will happen. Like sometimes it'll be maybe a psychedelic experience, like opens up this new perspective or some kind of nutrients that we didn't have access to in a sober consciousness. Or, yeah, a really profound friendship comes in, and we get to give a bit of a download and also pick up some new moves, greater depths of acceptance, and more detail and seeing. I think that the other relevant part of that story of the 5 days we spent together in Barcelona was that one of the conversations that you and I had when we were walking in the hills was where I finally got relief from the sense that I couldn't achieve the dream that I'd been working towards, which had really felt like it was choking the life out of me for most of the year of 2024. And I had to really labor the point of how frustrated and stuck that I felt, and have you listening so generously and drawing out more and more and more and more and more until I felt bored of my own suffering. And then you said, so what? In a very flippant and loving way. Like, so what? Yeah, it suffers. You're really hurting. Like, you think that you're not going to be able to achieve the greatest dream of your life and you're going to turn out to be a failure. So what? And that somehow, that so what was just the like, It's like pulling out the plug that let the sink drain and the stuckness go and fall through. And then, yeah, a couple of days later, I put a post on Twitter and said, "Hey, I need to borrow a bunch of money because I'm starting a retreat center in Barcelona." And everyone said, "Yes, let's go. Here, take my money." And now here we are, Casa Tilo. Direct result from that conversation and that relief that I really felt you gave me. Like it didn't feel like a reciprocal thing. It felt like you somehow gave me. So that was more like a therapeutic move, I felt like, um, in the sense that the attention was really flowing in one direction for a good sustained period of time. Um, so now here we are, Castillo, 10-bedroom home for stray dogs, wizards, and other peculiar kinds of people.
Yeah.
And it's a place that we're cooking extraordinary experiences for people that are seeking something. So the idea that we're going to get to do a week of circling and other practices is like exactly the whole point. Is that we're coming to fruition. This is what our relationship so far has been leading towards.
Yeah. I want to say some things before before we flesh out the retreat or what circling is, all that. Um, just that we where we added, I actually love that you invited us to start with our relationship. So I think this is actually one of the reasons I so deeply care about the practice of circling. Um, it's kind of that the thing that happened between us, that's what becomes possible in my world. Um, deep shifts in consciousness impact really starting to impact each other with the superpowers or the unique flavors or the learnings that the wisdom that everyone brings. It's often mutual, reciprocal. It's often coming from a sense of just actually hanging out and we're just having a good time, and then these massive shifts suddenly happen. Like in my experience, more than in most cases of what happens in therapy or any other process. And it's based on actually hanging out, a sense of community. It's less about space holding for each other. It's spontaneous. Um, I find that quite incredible. Also, the sense of you never know where the learning is coming from, and that's what I get most excited about whenever I start leading a new circling event, go into a new circling weekend or 6 months training or a week of retreat in this case. Like everyone shows up and everyone learns from everyone. And
Mm.
sometimes, of course, I lead the event and we can speak into what that means. But suddenly, like maybe this person that really didn't leave that much of an impression or was kind of quiet or nobody really knows them, suddenly they say something in the right moment and just like hits everyone. Like it's very insightful, like really shifting something. And there's something about oh, it's not just a teacher and
Mm.
we're all here and we're going to sit and listen and the teacher just delivers a thing. No, it's like me as a leader, I'm going to get as moved as everyone else. Um, that's just really how it feels in actual, like being a consciousness or something.
Mm. Do you want to say more about the role of leader? Like, what are you taking responsibility for?
But we get to the juicy end immediately here. Um, I take responsibility for showing up with everything I know. And in my world, I take responsibility for showing up with as much capacity that I have. So I have. So like making sure I really take good care of myself and have enough rest before prepare myself, do my practices also during the retreat, eat well, all these things that actually mean that I'm available and taking care of in the moment to make sure that while I'm leading, I have everything I need to actually do a good job. And that means that if somebody sometimes asks me, I might not actually be available in that moment. Um, but it's geared towards a greater availability in general. Yeah, I really care about the people showing up and what they want for themselves. Um, and I trust that I think there's a very deep trust that circling seems to cultivate in I trust aliveness or how I'm being moved. So it's not like, oh, I have my personal needs and they kind of contradict with what it means to be a leader. It's more like, oh, um, it seems like right now I'm not available and somebody's really impacted by that. But I actually trust that there's real intelligence in that and that, oh, they're really struggling for some hours. And it seems actually good because then they've suddenly stepped into their power and asked someone else or actually really found something. And then maybe later I'm suddenly really available and then things have already resolved. So they have really found their own power or something like that. Just really trusting that there's intelligence to these things and that I don't need to override myself as a leader. Like I don't need to fix or caretake. I do take responsibility for the program and that things are taken care of together with the team. Or like take responsibility for delegating also everything I don't want to do or where other people step in with the leadership. And then there are moments where it does feel like a lot of nuance is required in my experience. It's a very fine edge or like line between there's a risk of almost like stealing power away from people or like taking chances from them where they could actually be more empowered. And on the other side, there's a risk of um, maybe avoiding a bit of
Hmm.
responsibility on my side. It doesn't quite feel like, imagine there's something below that, and then the risk is to not discover that or something. Um, so, uh, yeah, sometimes there are edgy moments where it really takes a lot of sensing in. Oh, um, somebody's asking me for something, and it doesn't actually feel like I want to take responsibility for that. Like, I don't want to take responsibility for people's life or whether they have a good time. I do care about when people are challenged and also don't want to take the chance away from them to feel those challenges and be really faced with those. Because I think this is actually a perfect occasion for that. And it's humbling, right? Because I never quite know, oh, is this going to serve them or is this actually pushing them a bit over the edge?
And you mentioned the program. I'm wondering, like, um, how much choreography you design, like how much, or not even just how much, but like, what's your thought process, like as a designer of a social experience? Um, what are you paying attention to, and like how much do you spontaneously allow for whatever arises at the moment, and how much have you actually got a set of like a repertoire, a set of patterns that like, hey, we do this and then we do this, and then on day three we do that.
Um, it does feel like there are, like, I do know things, but I imagine if somebody comes from a normal retreat program, it's actually surprising little that I do know. So the program, I imagine I have a sense. Um, this is on me and Navi. So I'm as a main leads, it's going to be Navi and me leading this. They're one of my closest friends for many years. We've led a bunch of events together. We're coming in as the most experienced circling leaders here. We've both practiced. I practiced for 8 years. They've practiced for much longer, even leading for over 5, both of us. And then there's the team. We can speak into that in a moment. It's an awesome team. So I do imagine that Navi and me, we have a bit of a sense of just things we generally like, oh, generally when people have had lunch, some movement is nice. Or some alone practice, contemplative or movement practice in the morning is generally nice. Or evening program is going to be a bit more fun. Like there are a couple of things that everyone who has done a lot of retreats kind of knows or has a sense for preferences. So these things we have a sense for. And then we know what we generally like to lead. I know that Nabi always leads dancing. Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic at it. I always like to lead a lot of movement things as well. So we know our flavor based on what we really like to lead. What we don't know is how we feel in the moment, how the group feels, what kind of presence asks of us. So all these things, like what we actually going to do on what day and all these things and what practices we're going to lead into, all that we don't actually know. We have a repertoire, but it's quite common that you never quite lead the same practice twice in circling because you're actually really taking it from the present moment and what seems good. And sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes I lead a weekend and we do a lot of, yeah, sometimes I lead an event with newbies, with like mostly people who are a bit newer to the practice, which usually means 1 or 2 years. Um, and you end up in really advanced territory. I just came back from a circling training yesterday, and usually we do a lot of like, we kind of all, I think, without having talked about it as a team, assumed we would do more like beginner practice because that's what the training is for. But that just didn't feel right. So we did a lot of actually a bit more advanced stuff, and that just like the flow in the group was amazing with that. Yeah.
What's the difference between beginner and advanced?
What the difference is? None, probably. Um, Maybe one of them is fine with not knowing, or fine, or knows more how little they know. Or
Hmm.
it's the paradoxical, which I find is the same with martial arts or contemplative practices or mystical practices of, yeah, I've done this practice for 8 years and I'm in some level I'm not advanced and in some level I am, or like, it's like it's not a practice that you do for a couple of years, but it's a lifetime of more and more learning. It's probably good to approach it with a beginner's mindset. I have some questions too. Um, there's something that you and me can be like completing each other in a way, but also I imagine, or we have had sometimes tensions, or like polarize each other on some things. And I'm curious about those things and what you see, what your impression is of circling. Maybe like also the tensions and one aspect where I'm curious is also the responsibility bit. Like, what do you see as your responsibility as a host or when you
Hmm.
host groups at your place?
I think I've had some wariness about circling uh, due to some like specific experiences that I didn't like, and then some more general pattern reading about what's happening in the culture more broadly. So like the broad example would be seeing people who are in like swipe culture, um, having these very brief, very intense experiences of intimacy that leave no mutual obligation afterwards. And that feels like kind of demonic to me. Um, yeah, there's this game around accelerated intimacy with no obligation that just feels really so close but so far. Um, and I've experienced circling to be an invitation to strip off layers of pretense or politeness or to just experiment with what happens when you give yourself more permission to be more different kinds of ways of being yourself.
Mm.
And that often comes with excitement and trigger, and like you might get a vulnerability hangover afterwards when you're like, wait, what? That was so weird. I told that person he was a fat idiot because it seemed in the moment like the thing that I should say. Um, thinking about myself here, having called someone a fat idiot.
Does sound like you.
Um, and my complaint was like, oh, I've never seen, like if you're in maybe you're in the kink scene, for example, and again you step out of your habitual mode of interacting. Part of kink is the aftercare. Like, hey, we kind of know that this can bring up a bunch of stuff, and this is how you can take care of yourself afterwards, or this is who you can talk to. And I felt circling was really the circles that I'd been invited into seemed like they encouraged a lot of experimentation and depth. But then it really felt like being abandoned. Like once the circle is officially closed, it's like, oh, let's pretend like we're not bound to each other anymore. Um, and that frustrated me. So I think on the question of like what am I responsible for, I've been learning that here, right? Like we've run, I think I've lost track, but I think like 16 or 17 events since May. And some of them feel more or less in alignment with who I want to be, how I want to show up. And I've learned that the things that I want to take responsibility for, the first one is very mundane, concrete, domestic, um, the animal needs of the person, that they need a good place to sleep and good food, and they need to be oriented to the space that they're in and the hazards and opportunities, and just that every new group always brings up a bunch of anxiety and unsettled energy. And like, I just want to help people get through that gracefully and not have to spend a long time feeling unsettled and out of place. And like, I want people to feel at home, and I'll put a lot of energy into, yeah, making things easy on people and connecting with them and making sure that they have a sense that um, their needs are important. They're not all going to get met, obviously, but they're going to be considered. And this is another thing that's I learned a lot from Nutty, is like anticipating people's needs is an amazing way to help them feel at home. So that looks like, there's like night lights in the hallway so that when you go to the toilet at night, you can find your way, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So I think of that as the domestic, and then there's something else which is more pastoral. Like, um, I think every group I've been in has a sense of, it's almost like gravity, or there's a terrain. There's like a status terrain. There's a game you can play called Who's on the in group and Who's on the out group. And as a host, I feel like I've got some responsibility for leveling that terrain, not going overboard and like micromanaging people so no one ever has hurt feelings, but anticipating that there's going to be a few people that are going to show up predisposed to alienate themselves, marginalize themselves, and just making a little extra effort to bring them in. And I want people to feel a sense of warmth, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's quite effortless for me to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, I don't know. It feels like it reduces the maximum depth we can get to if there's a whole bunch of people. If 60% of the group is in, and then 20% are kind of disengaged, and then the other 20% are really actively feeling freaked out. And I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really want to support that kind of dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot coming up just listening to you and loving seeing your unique leadership there. Like what, let's see if feels fitting to you, but the way it looks from the outside is imagine you sense a sense of calling. Like this is like duty and being called into, yeah. And that's also part of what I really love about circling or what I really want to invite people in is that sense of leadership that feels like it's your calling or you're being asked to by the divine or it's heavy words, but where it's like it's genuine. So it's not like everyone starts doing what Rich does because that
Mm.
it needs to be done. No, there's a trust that oh things need to be done, but it's gonna be done by in the right moment by the right person.
I just want to add a color to that, because it is a duty, but it's a pleasure.
Mm.
Like, I know the most fun I can have is when I'm at a party where everyone feels liberated.
Yeah.
And I just selfishly, if I see people feeling uptight, like I have a little project to loosen them up because I know that's going to increase the bliss that I can access. And there's like a symbiotic thing there where, yeah, it's good for them, it's of service to them. I'm not like instrumentalizing them for my own pleasure. But I do get the payoff of extra pleasure when I do it.
Yeah. And that speaks exactly, yeah, into what I would want to invite from people. And interestingly enough, I actually recognize the in-group, out-group a lot less at circling events because there's, I think, something in the nature of when we are in surrendered leadership, um, when we are just had a short moment of seeing the Matrix. um,
I pressed the wrong button, my video disappeared. It's fine, I'm here. I was here all along.
um, oh, it reminds me of like we Freaky Friday. They're like, am I in my body or am I in your body now? Um, in surrendered leadership, we ask people to surrender to the moment. So what usually happens in my experience is that we start to sense where am I supposed to be, or like in what interaction and what connection with whom. So it becomes less about familiarity and less about preference. And again, it's what are we being asked to express, inhabit in each moment. So I find that people or at events, even if I'm there with people I've known for many years and close friends, of course, I feel that friendship or that level of attachment. But actually, I find myself suddenly interacting with everyone, or even with the people I don't know. But suddenly, it's like I'm being asked to go over to that person and interact, and I don't quite know why. So I actually find that these dynamics of in group, out group are significantly less in the circling spaces that I'm in.
Mm, mm.
And I imagine we're
There's,
going to polarize quite nicely between Rich inviting people to feel welcomed and have a good time. And then I imagine wanting to stand up on my side for, I do want people to feel cared for and welcomed. And if there are needs we can just kind of take care of, then let's do that. Um, and at the same time, giving space for people to also, yeah, we're not just going to feel comfortable and they're actually feeling through our discomfort or feeling our discomfort, really seeing what is actually in there is very liberating and
mm,
very intelligent as well.
mm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that part where I feel like there's a kind of minimum threshold of inclusion that I want people to experience. And then once they're in, I want to be able to be really direct with them and be like, you are being an idiot, you know? Like I want to have that freedom to I would say it more skillfully, perhaps. But to give each other tough feedback about how we go through the world making a mess and like how we can be more skillful with each other.
Yeah.
And that's really uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah, it's confronting. And in my world, um, like there are two scenarios that I sometimes see. Either I have skin in the game, so the person I think is an idiot because they're actually starting to touch my boundary, or it provokes me, or I'm projecting, or so then I think the practice is really there to reveal really more of that.
Mm,
Um, and for us to take ownership of our part in it as well.
mm.
And then there's the other where, at least as a leader, I feel pretty committed to um, seeing, and I think you do that as well. At least I've seen you inhabit this, is seeing or like holding someone's dream together with them, or maybe holding a potential for them until they start to learn to hold it themselves. So like, oh, it feels like a bit of an idiot because like I can see like you're like 2 millimeters away from things could just be so easy for you, or like,
Yeah.
or I see the way you're really not taking responsibility, and I just really want to stand firm on. I want you to take responsibility because a lot of good is going to come out for you, and that.
Yes, I just suddenly had all these examples of people I know that are being idiots in a very specific way. Like, oh yeah, that's for my private journaling, people to catch up with. It's often so often the case, right? You see someone, they have a dream and they're doing one very specific thing that constantly prevents them from accessing it.
Yeah,
It does maybe point to a question that had been lingering for me, sort of within the frame of like things that annoy me about circling. Um, because it's so much about presence, so much about the now. I have felt like when I've done a bunch of it, it's like there's another half of me that's left out of the question, and that's about the future, and my ambition and the impact that I want to have and the change that I want to create, and that it's quite hard to access. I'm sure people can do it, but it's quite hard to sort of get into planning mode when you're in presence. Um, and it can feel really cool to be in these altered states with people. But then I've kind of got to the end of a session or something and kind of gone like, and what was the point of that? Like, just is this time well spent, you know?
yeah,
And so like I guess the question is like, do you have some hopes for what difference this makes to people?
yeah. Um, it's a lot I could say here as well about it. What I see happen is that people, when they do this practice, they they actually start dropping stuff they thought they wanted,
Mm,
but they seem to actually embody more of what they really want, or like what's really wanting to come through in their life. Like, yeah, like the thing we're here to embody, really. So I actually experience most people to just look more empowered to to get that level of authentic feedback on your self-leadership and be confronted in where you are not quite yet stepping into responsibility for yourself and all that. Just it's confronting, but it's at the same time it's also super loving, and and we're really not pushing like from the just being with. I experience that in therapy so much, and I do circling therapy, so um, I hardly ever actually need to push a client, or like I might be standing quite firm on boundaries of, yeah, you're not taking responsibility here, or like I'm not willing to take responsibility for this thing, for example, with a client. Um, but actually, just being with seems to be enough. I never actually need to push for any release or any, oh, now we need to shape up. to do the thing, or now we the pushing actually never has to happen, and I find that amazing. It's
Mm.
actually just when we are rested enough, there's all this energy coming. I experience this clarity when I'm in presence. Suddenly I'm like, oh, oh, suddenly I'm in this state of my actually feeling my power and my leadership. And then it's almost like these things get done by themselves. So I've had moments of, yeah, so this is some of the hesitancy you had before. You also spoken to um, vulnerability hangover, or maybe like pushing for depth. I actually think that's usually a sign of us not having been skillful enough. It's like if we actually really listen to the moment, we might notice in circling quite often, I don't actually want to share this. I had it for a while quite often. I still have it sometimes when I lead. I'm like, I don't actually want to be vulnerable right now. I'm protected and I'm honoring those protections. So there's when I lead, I don't have any sense of we need to go deep. It's actually quite the contrary. Just the amount of depth that comes from just actually being really, oh, we're all a bit protected and seems to be actually fine, or more with ourselves. And I was also thinking, so I had the same like doing the retreat. I don't have a sense of, oh, we need to sit in presence now and really listen to each other or really go deep. There might just be a sense of, oh, it seems like all of us actually just want to move a bit or maybe even take care of the space a bit. I see you do that a lot. It's like, oh, actually, it doesn't quite feel right to actually just sit here if the space around us is a bit of a mess. Or I have a very strong commitment around movement and taking care of our bodies. Also, because I know Navi also has that. Um, moving enough. Like we don't want to do the sitting still, being really vulnerable. We also just, wow, like the genuine thing is that we just want to be with ourselves right now, or dance or work out in the morning, go for a walk, be in nature. So we also don't want to navigate, or I don't want to bring any assumptions of no, we need to do this. Circling means no, we need to. I want to just set question marks at those and listen deeper in what wants to come through. Um, I actually want to talk a bit about the team.
I was going to say, could you tell us a short love story about Navi?
Oh, there's so much. We've been best friends for years. It's probably the person I talk to the most in my life. I remember we became friends in a moment where I was having trouble with the person I was in a relationship with at that time. I was really triggered, really challenged at a circling event. And I was in a lot of anger, which I always thought was problematic or at least hard to take for people. And I kind of loved it myself, but I had a trouble with my anger just because so many people got triggered by it, or my partner at that time got really triggered. And then Navi just saw my anger and they were like immediately attracted to it and just went really deep with me. And that was the moment we became friends. Just both of us really noticing, oh, we don't actually seem to have trouble with each other's anger. We can just bring full force and it's really pleasurable, it's really alive. It's we just both want more of each other. And yeah, I've had many of those moments. They're incredibly skillful, very well experienced, and both of us we polarize quite well. Of usually I'm very heartfelt, like really feeling the subtlety in our body and our experience, and that's also what the feedback many people give me. Like they usually turn very honest, and also they start to feel a lot more of themselves and the subtleties in between each other. And then Navi is insanely skillful at moving those things or finding capacities in the non-dual and through movement. Um, Trouble describing it. but people usually find a lot more perspectives on themselves and get really opened up and get out of this thing of like, oh, this used to be a problem, but actually right now it's can actually just be with it. And um, yeah, it's really pleasurable to lead together. Both of us are quite committed to doing a lot of movement practice. And there's the level of trust that we have between our
Mm.
between us just really transmits in the space, and that we don't have to be careful with each other. We can just bring yeah. So the other thing that happens when me and them lead together, they get inspired to lead more, and then we get competitive in a really nice way. So when they lead more, I get inspired and I'm like, I want to lead more. And then they want to lead more. And for some reason it works. We just both start leading more and more and more. That feels really cool. And then we brought in Markus Nitzer, who's a circling leader as well, a friend of ours, and an incredible magician when it comes to body work as well. And it supports the vision of, yeah, we just really want to go deep in embodiment. The experiences I've had sometimes are when we have a week like this is incredible actually to have a whole week with a group, which means we're going to do the whole bonding, coherence thing, but can just go so much deeper. And a week is long enough to actually really show us new patterns for our life. And I've had sometimes these moments of curious if you recognize this. It's almost like I usually live my life from like here. Yeah, actually, I think it's deeper, but and then I'm at an event where we just have so much space to like sink into our body, into our flesh, and really see what's coming through there. It's like, oh, there's voice activation. We're like singing, or we're dancing. We are in nature. We're with authentic movement practice, and suddenly we just start to learn to live from like within the body, and we're starting to become. There's not a distinction anymore between body and us. It's just like, oh, like suddenly we're like plugged in and there's one whole thing moving. It's not even, oh, I have an arm and a hand. It's one whole thing. And we just to have that experience is what I would really like to invite people into.
Mm. I think my version of that's slightly different. My one's like last weekend, there were three of us under the Tilo tree playing cards. And then up on the balcony, there were two of our friends doing their own little micro meditation retreat. Um, and these moments where there's like multiple clusters of activity happening in parallel, for me is like the sweetest feeling. Um, and so like where you're describing sinking more into your flesh, I feel more distributed across the social field that it's so hard to put the stuff into words, right? But that the boundary of myself is more porous and I'm more like just spread out. And spread out into the room, but into the other rooms and then into the forest and into up into the mountain a little bit more than I just
Yeah,
much wider.
yeah. I love that. I see that happening. Like, you know, there will be states, we will probably drop into states of wide spatial awareness and synchronicity, and almost like where we start to sense each other across the whole house, just with that amount of time we're going to spend with each other, and almost like being able to like almost like knowing what's happening in the house even though you're sitting outside, or that level of attunement or synchronicity while like everyone is like in the element. And that's what I want yeah, we're going to have a focus on self-leadership, the way we each lead ourselves through life and take responsibility for our life, but really get that unique flavor out, where that usually happens through mirroring each other's light of like, wow, I really feel you right now so much. And then people start noticing that as well and bring awareness to it, and then they come out even more and loving that, seeing the house and everyone is in the element, um, and the level of trust. And I think that's really what servant leadership can do.
Mm.
Um, we have you on the team, social wizard. You've spoken a bit into that. It's incredible also the way I see you mirror each other's light, and I see just one after another person, including myself, step into the light just because I kind of get the invitation from you and the mirroring, and think you're really good at the holding the potential, the dream for people until they hold it themselves. We need people like that. Um, do you want to talk about the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think so. We've got Michael and Alice coming in as like exuberantly enthusiastic helpers, I would say. And they met each other here, I think, Casa Tilo. And it's so corny to say this, but I do see them as like kind of embodying the benefits of like what the space is designed for, that they kind of left with a new set of batteries after they arrived or something like that. Like that they kind of, for both of them, stepping up to play a significant role in holding an event like this is like quite a level up from what they were doing before. Um, the sense of being encouraged and trusted and supported and um, yeah, yeah, that they've gone through some kind of graduation process from, oh, I'm happy to be included in an event to like, oh, I'm ready to actually take some responsibility. That's really awesome. And then what else to say about them? Like, um, I think they're both really intense weirdos, like the rest of the team. And um, they both have, that means they both have kind of out of band perspectives. Um, that you're going to hear stuff from them that is going to be unexpected and it reveals some aspect of reality they hadn't been thinking about.
Yeah. And I want everyone who comes to the retreat to get a flavor of different leaders because it's so easy to think, oh, I need to be like that person, or I need to be like Rich, or but like the leadership that is just so unique. So I love that we get to experience different people leading different things, or just bringing their leadership into, how the space is designed and the invitations that are being made. And I love the chance for other people who come, if other experienced circling leaders want to show up, they're going to be asked to like about the edge, or like what is it you want to like really lead here.
Mm,
And some of
mm,
these things might be formal practice, or somebody's really experienced, but just even when we're in some leadership, just bring your self leadership and how are you with other people. Yeah, I love to get just a lot of different flavors there.
mm. I had an impulse to talk a little bit about a new kind of leadership that I'm trying. I think I've done it maybe 4 or 5 times ever. This um, live performance of, I guess people call it a sound bath. It's like the easiest term for it. Um, I'm mentioning it because, yeah, I really, really, I'm very tentative about it. Um, it's really clear that I'm a beginner and I don't know what conditions I need to feel confident doing it yet. I'm like discovering them by doing it. And when it works, it feels like a new lens on the same game, which is like, hey, I'm gonna be setting the context for an hour or two. I'm gonna be like calling the shots. And these shots are going to provoke things in you. And some of them are going to be instantly pleasurable, and other ones are going to be aversive. And the game we're all going to play is, can you welcome the aversive bits? Can you expand when you feel that cringe or that repulsion of like, gosh, that's a really abrasive noise? Can you just with that hearing sense relax the cringe, like soften your awareness around it and embrace it and trust that there's a bigger context for that abrasive sound that suddenly makes it part of a beautiful picture. And that if you can practice doing that with sound, that maybe the same muscle, you're working the same muscle groups of like welcoming difficult emotions or inviting in parts of yourself that are really hard to be with or other people, like relationship seems to be about finding more and more troubling information about someone else. And like, can you learn to embrace that, feel that specific flavor of a cringe and then embrace it. Um, and I'm not going to promise that I'm going to run this at the retreat, but I'm really, if I'm well, if I'm looked after, if I'm taking care of myself and people are taking care of me, then I'll be feeling really confident and safe to run that. And I hope other people are showing up with their tentative offerings as well, and that um, this will be an opportunity for people to push themselves to the edge of something where they know they've got some brilliance, but they also don't know their limits or they don't know what they need exactly, and they can be a bit of a mess, and we can experiment together and be each other's guinea pigs.
Yeah. I feel excited for you to lead that. I It feels like tasting some brilliance there. I like it.
I'm going after this conversation. I'm heading to the synthesizer shop to buy more instruments.
Yay!
I feel like it's you and your pony, like getting a pony as a young girl. It's like getting more synthesizers.
Yeah. Yeah, and another invitation is also how would it be to lead where you're not confident?
Mm.
Like, can you do the thing you're inviting people to
Yeah,
kind of?
so I did. So the last time I did one of these was a small group, um, and I kind of like was not in my right mind in some ways, and I decided to do it anyway. And a big part of the performance was me coaching myself and just say, "Hey, just take your own medicine." Um, and I'm glad to have that move available to me. But I know from some kind of exterior, however objective you can be about an aesthetic experience, um, I just know that I'm like capable of a lot more. And the lesson I took from it was like, oh, I know what I should have done differently in the preceding hours to be better equipped to make the
Yeah,
most of this moment. Um, so like I'm glad that I can coach myself through like, oh, I didn't prep enough for this. I
yeah,
didn't I didn't show up with all the resources I needed. And I'm still gonna do it anyway.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's what I mean about not being confident yet. It's like I don't actually know what is the recipe that I need. Um, my ambition is really high. Like I have a stated aim of playing at La Sagrada Familia. Like I really think it's music that needs to be played in a cathedral. And the cathedral needs this kind of music being played in it, and it's not at the moment. So it just seems like yeah, I'm not shy about my ambition or like how potent I think it can be. But I'm humble in the sense that I know there's a whole lot I don't know yet.
what do you need to take the next step?
My goal is like play the cathedral on my 100th performance, and I'm like what I'm 4 or 5 or 6 so far, and so it's just kind of having measured. It's mostly just getting the reps in, and each rep teaches me another thing, and making sure I'm actually getting the lesson at each stage, and not hurrying and not stopping.
I like that. I like that you have that high ambition for yourself.
But I have these high ambitions for everyone else, so it's nice to like Shine the light back on me sometimes.
Yeah.
I've got this little dissatisfaction of like, I feel like we could speak for many more hours and still not come close to giving any impression of what this thing is going to be like, who it's for, why it's beneficial, what people can expect. Like, God damn it. I just
I,
want I just want to
yeah.
fill the house with these people and have this experience. And
Yeah.
I don't know what words need to be said for that to happen.
I can speak some more, set some more context, but I also have something similar. Like, could talk to you for hours about this. Um, I feel maybe I speak my desires,
Mm, mm,
the vision I have. I so want to have a group of people who feel enthusiastic about this, about relational practices, about presence, and feel excited to have people on different levels there. I think that's always incredible to have a big team, to have advanced people come also, and whoever shows up with whatever um, experience level, just a week together with our different flavors is going to move so much, even without us trying to move things, just by actually being present. Um, yeah, I see it as a community gathering in some way of people who are into relational practices or even meditation and want to try this, or embodiment and want to try this, or slightly different flavors, and actually just spending a week together. Plus, we're going to have a week of optional co-living afterwards. There's the synergy that comes out of that is, is going to be really powerful. And to also just meet each other and live together and cook together, share meals, the small connections, people go on a walk here and there. It's just going to be really, I find that very, very nourishing and almost like sane making.
mm.
Like usually we're like spread out, but actually coming together and having our attachment needs taken care of and all these things and have a good time with each other. It's very powerful. Um, like I said, the focus is on embodiment and self-leadership. Like, what do people want for their life? What do they want for themselves? And bringing attention to that, inviting people, like holding each other's potential for each other. And um, that involves confronting each other just through our experience. Like there's usually not even coaching needed or something. It's just like, we start to see where we clash or where we're like suffering. And then also, yeah, there's so much love coming through just being with each other, actually. Playing and being present, meeting. It's really simple as well. And it's just so incredibly loving and fun. We have so much nature around us. We want to circle in nature in the forest cathedral, as I see it in Casa Tilo, that space, make music together, have an awesome dance party in the evening, sit until late in a nice summery weather, well ahead of the rest of Europe. Like it's starting to get a bit warm there. Um, Sit in the evenings until late, talk under that beautiful tree. Um, what I find really strong about circling and Svanad leadership is that we don't go for coherence immediately, or we don't try to cohere. We're actually inviting everyone into their autonomy or sovereignty, which includes agency, responsibility, So everyone is kind of invited to do more of what they really want and show up and how that impacts everyone else, be with how they impact the space and others and the feedback they get, which usually ends up in such a deep group coherence where we are probably going to navigate at times. Oh, everyone seems to want to do different things right now. And the group is kind of breaking up for a couple of the sessions and not us delegating it, but just in this kind of leadership of like, oh, these people actually want to go over there and these people are just by themselves or some people stay in a group, really encouraged because what I experience is that the level of coherence that actually comes and suddenly we're in this session and everyone listens to each other and it's complete silence and such deep attunement. That's what I really want to practice and learn, what I also see as important in this world of like, we're not trying to create harmony. We're really in our autonomy and this deep harmony or like deep coherence coming from that.
Mm.
So that's also what I envision a lot.
You could have just been describing sonic experience as well.
Can you say that again? I didn't quite hear it.
Oh, it just sounded like you could have just been describing a sonic experience. Like it's how a lot how I think about the music as well. That you just it's got to be a welcome for all the discordancy and the chaos, and inevitably gravitates. It's like the way that the universe condensed out of these clumpy bits of matter into a solar system and then generated life. You know, like order does emerge, like coherence does emerge. Somehow, it's just part of the operating principles of this universe we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems fitting. And then I also really want to show up with the skills I have and actually teaching people how to be skillful with each other so
Mm.
that they actually feel more of themselves and the power and um, come through.
It's also going to be one of these places where people are more likely than usual to find the love of their life, which is the most important metric for me of success. Like that, I mentioned the swipe culture. Like I'm not interested in these like single serve experiences of relationship. Like I want people to come entangled and bound.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the other thing about Alice and Michael from the team, right? Like they met each other here and then say, oh, right. Then they're circling all the time in New York. And now they're coming back here to do this. Like that, these friendships form or these partnerships form. Um, that to me is necessary precondition for a really good life.
Yeah. And you say the love of your life. I also just really deeply care about the sense of community and friendships. And, we met at each other at a gathering like this. And um, I hope lots of our shared friends show up and then their friends and then people we don't yet know but want to meet. And that is also going to be like a bit of a teapot relational practices. Come hang out and then we live together for a week. Sounds a bit like a dream. Yeah, so also for the people who want to come who are experienced in different practices, like I hope they want to reach out and want to contribute to this. I'm starting to touch something that's also slower that feels very sacred and have fewer words for it and comes more through in the silence. Like, yeah, I think it would point towards, oh, now I'm speaking about it, but starting to open up to just the amount of love that would actually come through at an event like that. Yeah, it's quite big.
I have a wish.
Tell me.
Well, when you were saying that, um, I kind of wish I wanted to sing, and I wanted us to sing a song together that we know. And that made me wish for for this retreat. Like I really want there to be someone who puts their hand up to be the choir leader that can help bring us into song.
Mm.
Um, After I go to the synthesizer shop, I'm going to choir practice, and we've got 250 people singing in the basilica in the city, and it's such a saturation of joy.
Yeah.
Um, in the way that people go to the sauna, to like have that like, whoa, I'm really almost overwhelmed with the heat that like saturates and sweeps out. I feel that singing together, yeah, really unkinks something in my system, and um, yeah, it's just a wish that someone out there is going to be like, oh, I love leading singing. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. I was immediately thinking of a person or two, shared friends of ours. Um, yeah, I want there to be art. I want there to be relating to the trees, music. I want people to bring in their flavors. Um, feel touched. I could just imagine the amount of love coming through being 250 people singing in the choir. It's incredible. I got this sense of people receiving a gift. Like I often experience that in circling. It's like everyone has been really deeply touched in ways that didn't even know was possible. It's suddenly start believing again. I want that. And that's also the responsibility I want to take, not like making sure, but like I want to be available for when I'm being called to just really be with someone and support them very genuinely.
Yeah, I've got this giddy feeling about it. It's going to be the best one yet.
Yeah, imagine 2 weeks of that with several people who are really well informed in trauma work and being with our body and amount of self connection and being with each other and cooking for each other. Like, and circling is incredible, and then doing it at Casa Tilo is quite a dream for me because Casa Tilo has this. Oh, we're just actually hanging out and having a good time, and it's sunny and the nature is incredible, and there's nice music playing, like this kind of summer evening vibe, just
Yeah.
coming out of the house and
Yeah, end of April, it's going to be the Tilo tree is full of leaves, but they're all brand new. So they're very, very bright, yellowy green. And so many birds showing up. Like it feels like every day 1,000 new birds show up. That feeling of like spring has really, really hit the forest, and it's like a wildfire of life out there. That it's just going to charge the space so intensely.
it's a lot of erotic energy.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
It's perfect, actually. Yeah, right now I also have a dream of just people, people from the States or something coming, like people I haven't met in Teapot who are really into this as well. And they haven't all met each other yet or something, or like level of friendship, like creating together that can come out of this as well. It's just incredibly touching. And I want that.
it's the best for me. The best part of Teapot, I think, is having all these digital connections with people that are very fascinating. But when they're only tweets being exchanged, there's this huge fuzziness and lack of clarity about who this person is. But having an inkling that there's something precious there, and then meeting them in person and doing it with a critical mass of people meeting each other at the same time and recognizing, like, oh my God, you're like 1,000 times more incredible than I could have imagined. And all of those digital experiences we had were real memories, and we have shared culture and shared language, and like we have in jokes that are ready to roll. Like we already made them up, but we're not starting for the first time, like that gave me such an enormous charge of like confidence and ambition and sense of having a place in the world when I went to my first teapot gathering and realized like, holy moly, these people genuinely are wizards. And we're already friends. Like we already know each other. We've been reading each other for years. It's so precious.
Yeah. Yeah, and being a bit new to teapot still, I want to meet those social mystical wizards. Do you have anything else you want to speak into here?
I'm starting to get distracted about the lust that I have for my new synthesizer I'm going to go and pick up. Um, no, I think it's just an appeal to anyone listening that's like intrigued and not convinced to reach out to you, reach out to me, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, what we're trying to describe is really hard to put in words, but one on one, it's a lot easier.
It makes me aware that we haven't even described what circling even is, so in leadership. We've given a flavor. So anyone who has question marks, considers coming, just reach out and I'm very happy to chat or give them a try.
Yeah. And then for the person who's not really doubting and knows that they should be here, I'm like, okay, go and book in before it sells out. Tilo.casa/circling. It's gonna be honestly, yeah, it's gonna be really exceptionally good.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for, yeah, just talking as always.
Yeah, it's really fun. Goodbye now.
Goodbye now.